fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going in the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to him!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Assist to the front bumper, and he hits him. Assist to the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's gonna pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's gonna get them all done with. What amazing!
Racely to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is gonna touch in. Pit press sideways.
saved it.
What a save!
Look to the outside as Cronkite goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
I tried this contact though.
Slide left to the racetrack. Chris Benner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schubert, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
'20's turned out to be a pretty crazy year all round, but in sim racing, certainly it's been huge over the last few weeks, and certainly now the Geodesic GoPro Championship ramping up too. Here on SimSpeed TV, on the iRacing Esports Network, and on iRacing Live, we bring you round 2 of the Geodesic GoPro Championship from Barber Motorsports Park. Multi-class GT3 and GT4 racing, of course with GT and GS demarcations in this series. And we've got a 1 hour, 15-minute race coming up for you all. And it's sure to be a banger in terms of strategy, in terms of racing, in terms of intrigue. For SimSpeed TV, my name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box, David Haynes. David, it's round 2 of the championship. We saw an absolute cracker at Interlagos, but now we move to Barber, which is an incredibly hilly track, incredibly twisty track. It's something that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, g'day. You know, it will definitely be very, very interesting around here. Lots of undulation, lots of curbs that you need to ride over, and you know, you can tune a GT3 car for that kind of thing, but this GT4 car, I think a lot of the drivers, a lot of the teams still getting their head around it, and it drives a lot like a high-performance road car. It does get light, it does get unsettled over bumps, over crests, so it will not be an easy car to drive around here.
No, certainly not. We'll say once again, we're using the GT3 cars in the GT class, and then brand new Porsche Cayman 718 GT4 is our GS class. And we've seen quite some interesting racing eventuate from that, especially in terms of strategy, which is something that's going to come into play here at Barber. 1 hour and 15 minutes. The GS class has a 75% fuel tank restriction. And the question is, can the drivers make it on fuel? Some drivers reckon they can save and go the entire race without taking a pit stop, but many of them think they won't. Who is going to make the jump? We'll have to wait and see.
You know, it is super indeed interesting like that. This GT4 car has a pretty big fuel tank, all things considered. Normally 115 litres, and it's just a naturally aspirated 3.8 litre six-cylinder in there, and you can't use as much of the throttle as you'd like. You don't have the widest of tyres, you don't have, oodles of downforce. It is a little bit out of the corner before you can give it all of the throttle. In normal conditions, these cars do go quite the distance on a tank. Even with a 75% restriction, they're going to go past an hour, but can anyone make it an hour and 15? That's a question that we're going to have to wait and see. But if there's anywhere you could do it, I'd have to say somewhere like Barber, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Barber Motorsports Park, actually one of the newer classic road racing circuits in the United States, built in 2003, 15 turns, and it is located just outside Birmingham in Alabama. So a lot of turns here that travel over hills, a lot of turns that change elevation halfway through. You've really got to make sure your chassis is set up nicely for this circuit, especially down at the chicane at turn 7, 7A, and 7B. It's a sweeping right-hand entry, and it's almost something of a chicane as you're braking down into an opening left-hander. Very challenging corner. So there we go. Qualifying is over, and we are going to take a look at our pole laps in each class. The first one we will look at is Tyson Meyer, who's taken another fantastic pole position in the GT class for Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing. And through turn 1, you can already see the amount of elevation change we're dealing with here. Turn 2 is never ending. You're working that front left tire super hard through here. You've got to make sure you keep it nice and straight over that crest, because if you don't, you get some oversteer, you might spin. Nice late braking into a very open hairpin, double apex, even triple apex in some ways, and then another short straight down to that very difficult turn 7A and B section. Braking at the number 2 marker, using the ABS, ride the curbs, bump over the one on the left, and then keep it nice and tight, smooth on the throttle, and out onto this section where it's a flat out chicane. Got to try and use that curb and not get an off-track 1X. And then the final sector of this Barber Motorsports Park circuit, hitting the curbs. You want to try and use as much of this one as possible. Ride the crests, keeping it tight once again, working the throttle and the brakes all the time through this section is Tyson Meyer, keeping it nice and tight through the second last turn. And this last turn can be very misleading. Tightens up a little in the middle, and then a nice straight exit onto the start-finish straight. That was 1:21.4 seconds. That's what a lap around Barber Motorsports Park looks like in an Audi RS3 LMS. So with that, we can see that Tyson Meyer, with 2/10 over Dominic Olivier in second place, a very clean lap to do it, and a clean lap is required at Barber.
Yeah, well, certainly the precision over those curves, that's what really, really seems to matter for putting in a one quick lap around here. And you see that the GT3 car can bounce over and eat them up. Now we're going to see about the GT4.
Yes, indeed we are. And Justin Tipton having a car in front of him for his run at pole position. This is a 1:28.4. And of course it is a bit of a slower pace, less powerful car, less grip, but very fun to drive. Tipton just guiding it through turns 1 and 2 here. You got to use that rotation when you get on the throttle. The Cayman being mid-engined has quite the interesting driving characteristics, and hard on the brakes for this hairpin. You'll be able to see the advantage, David, of getting on the throttle nice and early. He plants the throttle and he gets a great exit down this stretch.
Yeah, indeed. A funny little car it is. It's a real Porsche as well because the fuel tank isn't mid-mounted. The fuel tank is right on the nose. So the center of gravity and the balance of the car, like any good Porsche, changes very drastically over a fuel run.
Certainly does. So to be very light in the rear end at this point. Tipton struggling a bit for grip through there. A bit more than the GT3s at least. And then braking at about the 1.5 marker through the crest. Tiny bit of oversteer, which he is managing. It's looking like a very smooth lap, and he's actually running out wide to take the last turn here, which is something you would expect in cars that produce less downforce and rely a bit more on mechanical grip for their pace. But that, all up, 1 minute 28.472, that got him pole position in the GS class by a 10th.
Well deserved. It was a pretty smooth lap, and I think that made it look a bit easier than it often can be in this car.
We want to thank Building Optimization Systems for sponsoring replays this season of the Geodesic GoPro Championship. Let's think about now the results from race 1. Well, in our GT class, Tyson Meyer taking an excellent victory, which was almost marred by a collision at the end. Actually got some heavy damage on the last lap, but held on for a win from Racim Fazui, who unfortunately is not able to make this round. We're not seeing him in the field. Christian Challoner in P3 with Jesper Drulicka and Adam Crane rounding out the top 5. It's a competitive field up the top there, but Tyson Meyer has got some extra competition this round because his teammate Dominic Olivier is in the field.
Yeah, Tyson obviously one of the champions last season, so out of the gate well to make it 2 from 2 and try and defend that, I would say.
Yes, indeed. And Christian Challoner taking a podium as well in that first round, but he is not here today either. So the likes of Drulicka, Lane, Plummer, Dunnigan, and Johan Boyson, who got a DNF in round 1 at Brazil, he is actually starting P3 in the GT class for this round. It'll be interesting to see what he can do from here. What about the GS class then? Well, Andrew Caron taking a dominant victory, which seemed like was very easy for him. Brian Lockwood and Justin Tipton, meanwhile, making it Racecraft Esports 2-3 on the podium. Marcus Deck qualified on pole for race 1, but he's not able to capitalize on that. He sits 4th in the standings coming into round 2, and he's managed to get himself into 6th place in the GS class in this one. So Marcus Deck has some extra work to do.
Yeah, there we go. This is one that's going to be interesting to watch. There's been some slight tweaks to the Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport from last round to this round. Not major changes, but some to the ABS and traction control logic and some little things like that. And it was a pretty new car to a lot of our competitors. So that is one category where I think the pecking order could change a bit more dramatically than it can for GT3 machinery.
Yeah, certainly. There's many variables to take into account with the Porsche Cayman, and it very much is a driver's car. Really enjoy wheeling it around these tracks. Well, the final couple of minutes of this session will run through, and then we're going to get going for our 1 hour, 15-minute race. In terms of GT3, it's looking like it's going to be a pretty typical one with a pit stop involved. But yeah, quite interesting to see what the GT4 machinery is going to do. Well, we'll take a look at the grid in these last few seconds. Tyson Meyer in our GT class qualifying on pole. He shares the front row with his teammate, Dominic Olivier. Team Tortuga's Johan Boyson shares row 2 with Adam Crane. Zach Plummer makes it the first Action SimSport car there in 5th. Garrett Thompson joins him on row 3. Hayden Gober and Aaron Ackles, 7th and 8th. Maxime Detilly and Stacey Dunnigan rounding out the top 10 in your GT class. 11th, Jack Anderek, Mark Noski starting from 12th place. Jason Gotter, Lee Overton, Elijah Mitchell, and Andrew Taylor rounding out your 16 cars there. And we got Jesper Drilica and Dimitro Guzva, who have not set times. David, we'll take a look at our grid for the GS class now.
Yeah, indeed. Like we saw there, Justin Tipton on pole, and he's going to be sharing that front row with Andrew Caron. Behind that, Graham Sanders and John Miller. Marcus Deck in 5th, Giovanni Romano in 6th, John Bertifer in 7th, Louis Henriquez in 8th, Alan Powell in 9th, and Luke Wojcicek in 10th. There we go on to 11th, Sam Holden, Justin Rem in 12th, and Brian Lockwood, who was GT3 champion last season. He's only going to start from 13th there, alongside David Browning and Caleb John Lavender with no time. So Brian Lockwood, not where he'd want to start.
Certainly not. Starting lucky 13th. And we noticed in the qualifying session just before we went live that he had a spin on one of his qualifying laps, and they don't get much time to set a lap in this event. So Lockwood, unfortunately, not running a time that he would be happy with. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not he goes for that fuel-saving strategy we're talking about, because the time that you could potentially lose in the pits may equalize if Lockwood is able to keep up the pace, yet save fuel.
Yeah, and it's right on the edge there. I don't think anyone is going to get halfway through the race and then go, oh, you know what, I think I can save some fuel. Anyone who's going to try that strategy and is thinking about that strategy is going to have to do it from lap 1. So I think we'll know pretty quickly who thinks they can and who is just going for the sprint and a splash of fuel.
Well, the session is now over, and we're going to tick over into the race session. And hopefully when the green flag flies, we see some epic racing of the kind that we saw at Interlagos. The series has always turned it up in terms of multi-class GT racing. Very exciting battles throughout the field. It seems like no matter where you are, you have someone to race with. Race conditions then, 33-degree track temperature with some partly cloudy skies, bit of UV hitting the track and heating it up. But it's currently 5 minutes to 4 p.m. in sim time, which means that it's actually probably going to get cooler as the race goes on. We'll have to wait and see as the sun goes down. 75 minutes, estimated 56 laps. That's going to be the critical number.
And take a look at this. All of our GT class cars starting to grid, but in the GS class, everyone waiting for the final moment to put their car on the grid and fire it up. And then, as you see here at Barber, they've got to do a full pace lap, and that also burns down some of your fuel. So you know what? I reckon even look for lifting and coasting on the pace lap. That could tell us something. The other thing I notice is all the cars are gridding up. What a little variety we have in the GT class. Almost every manufacturer you could probably think to wish for, we've got. And that is going to be so interesting around Barber, because I'm just not sure that this sort of tight, twisty, undulating circuit necessarily favors every single mark of GT3.
Yeah, very good point that you make there, because we often talk about the differences between the GT cars in terms of how their performance is balanced. Different cars have different advantages at different tracks. I mean, the Mercedes, for example, we always talk about how it has that big torquey German V8 that allows it to launch out of the corners and get some passes done. But yeah, I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out for the Mercedes guys here. The guys driving the McLaren, like Mr. Boyson there on the right-hand side of your screen, they're going to have a bit of a rough time, because the McLaren is a difficult car to drive at the best of times around a circuit like Barber with these with some harshish curbs and many undulations. it's going to be a little unstable. So interesting to see what Mr. Boyson can do there from his 4th place starting position. 3rd place, my apologies. The GS class waiting for their call to go. The classes are going to keep a nice gap between them so that they don't get in each other's way when the race goes green.
Yep, and of course, a little bit of tire warming, looking like it's going to take place out there. That's an interesting one as well. All of these cars on iRacing's most recent specification of the tire modeling. So the tire temperature going to be a little bit cold, maybe towards the start of the race, and I imagine that's why you had to get your tires right in that window in qualifying, and the spin for Brian Lockwood prevented him from putting in a competitive time because once those tires are out of the window, then you just don't have the grip. You just can't have the confidence, and confidence is something you need a lot of around here because not only do you drive the car over these crests, but you can't see over them in half of the corners, especially in the final sector.
Yeah, the final sector is going to be quite a challenge, especially when we start seeing the classes come around to lap each other. It's going to be difficult to try and determine where the cars you're passing are going to go. And you can't get too far offline in that final sector. There's very narrow racing lines, particularly through here. There's only one line you can get. And Justin Tipton making his way towards turn 7. This is going to be a challenge in the the GS machinery. A big dip, and then getting unsettled over the curb with a car that you need to brake lightly, trail brake into the corners, get the rotation going. Hard to manage through there. And these GT cars through that dip, there's going to be quite a bit of understeer, I think, in the later stages of the race, and drivers not being able to make it round to the final couple of turns. So, lights are out on the iRacing pace car. It enters the pits. Tyson Meyer now assumes control of our GT field, and we're getting ready for green flag racing in the Geodesic GoPro Championship. Round 2 at Barber Motorsports Park is go. Tyson Meyer getting a good jump there and immediately assuming the lead of the race. Seeing a bit of jostling back in the pack. That's Adam Crane trying to defend from Garrett Thompson as the field streams into turn 1 for the first time. Side by side between Stacey Dunnigan and Hayden Gober through turn 1. And Gober on the outside, but can he hook up the exit? Oh, he can't quite do it. Dunnigan, meanwhile, stuck on that inside. Side by side already. It looks like Gober is going to get this. And Maxime Detilly taking advantage of that already, making up a position as we have green flag racing in our GS class. Justin Tipton leading from Andrew Caron, Graham Sanders in 3rd, John Miller 4th, Marcus Deck in 5th, and they have got a huge gap to the rest of the field at the moment.
Yeah, we saw a lot of too wide there in the GT class, but back here for the GS class cars, they were kind of all strung out when they reached the line, and our top 5 almost making a little bit of a breakaway as well. So 2 different tales for 2 different classes.
Yes, indeed. Brian Lockwood making his way up in that GS class already, but we take a look at, oh, goodness me, that's not looking good for the Mercedes of Dominic Olivier, having a tiny bit of an issue in that final sector. Adam Crane's got a very good view there as actually Olivier and Meyer switching positions there. Olivier leading the race.
Contact in GS class.
All right, we're getting a building optimization system replay. Yeah, and the car I saw go off was Meyer.
That's what I was talking about there. You can't see where the track goes over that crest. He's come on through and just gone wide out onto the grass. And here is what I heard. This is John Miller, and it's alongside of Marcus Deck, is it? Down here, a little bit of contact made. And then, look at...
Okay. Well, I think from Deck's position, he couldn't do too much about that once he was on the grass. That's very unfortunate between those guys. But Marcus Deck, once again, having luck not fall his way. We'll see what he does there. Miller, he was trying Deck to go around the outside of Miller there, but difficult to go side by side when the tyres are still cold.
Yeah, even more difficult on the grass when the tyres are cold there. So that was 2 cars running pretty high in our GS class. Pretty solid contact as well. We'll see what happens further from that, but not a particularly clean start. And there isn't really a back stretch here at Barber. You know, they come out of that corner with the museum, and then there's chicanes and more dramas.
Yeah, more dramas for Luke Watajek for Big Bone Racing. That's a spin down at turn 7. Dominic Olivier setting 1 minute 22 for his first proper flying lap of the race, as Meyer has lost another spot now to Adam Crane. Tyson Meyer's race is not getting off to a good start here.
Yeah, interesting to see that 2 Mercedes past him and his Audi dropping just a little bit. But Maxime Titilli, is he coming under threat from Hayden Gober, also in an Audi? What's the strength for the McLaren around here? Maybe is it bouncing over the curbs?
Well, the McLaren, it's difficult to tell because difficult car to drive. It's a bit of a tough mistress to tame, if you know what I mean. Maxime Titilli riding those curbs pretty well in his McLaren at the moment. It seems like he's got a good handle on it. Gober starting to lose a bit of time. News from race control, meanwhile. Marcus Deck in our GS class has been black flagged for the contact with John Miller. So that is not going to work out well for him. Brian Lockwood, meanwhile, up to 5th in the GS class. So he's making advances.
Yep. Carving his way through the field, but it must be said he's been helped a little bit by that contact we saw and the other spin in this particular class. So, relatively calm in GT. GS, it is all going off.
Yeah, absolutely. It does look quite calm in the GT class at the moment. There are some battle packs forming, but for the most part, they're staying single file. And there's quite the fight that I think is starting to form in our GS class. Alan Powell actually starting to come under some pressure now from Justin Rem and Sam Holden. So that's going to be quite the battle to watch in the GS class. Meanwhile, oh dear, Lee Overton losing a spot there to Elijah Mitchell in our GT class. This is for outside the top 10 in our GT class. Meanwhile, further up, Mark Noski and Jason Goddard. These two guys fighting in 2 Mercedes. And for a position in the top 10, a top 10 finish is always nice to have.
Yep, certainly. And again, bouncing over the curbs. This towards that corner where you just can't see where the track goes over the crest. Both of them know where to plant the car, though. And then long right-hander here with the pit entry on the outside. Some drivers really take the car out wide and make it 2 apexes there. Some drivers keep the line a little bit tighter. And if you're the leading driver, it can be difficult to take that wider line, because the trailing driver can almost stick the nose down the inside if they feel like it. Got her a bit wide in turn 1, though. Another corner where you come over a crest and can't fully see where the track goes.
Yeah, very difficult section here at the start of this lap, and we look at Zach Plummer, who's really starting to advance. Oh no, that's a problem there for Elijah Mitchell. Stalled it now. He's not able to get that car going, and that is a spin in turn 1, I believe. Got an update on the Marcus Deck situation. It has been changed to a post-race review. Race controllers elected to spend a bit more time on it. Building optimization system replay of Elijah Mitchell's incident, just catching the grass in turn 1 and then not able to quite gather it up into turn 2.
Yeah, it was just the tiniest amount of grass, and then he was out of sorts, offline, and couldn't quite find the grip. I hope he's got it going again now, but battles do continue here, where we've got the fascinating proposition of an Audi chasing a Ferrari, chasing a McLaren. There's a couple Ferraris out there, so we'll see when and where they come into their strengths. But you see this from Zach Plummer just taking the widest possible line through the final corner there. Into turn 1 is a possible overtaking opportunity, but he was definitely not close enough. It might have to wait for the hairpin in a couple corners' time.
Yeah, might have to. You see Garrett Thompson there monstering the back of Johan Boyson and the McLaren. And these 3 cars all mid-engined, but all have slightly different handling characteristics. Here we go. Boyson actually lifting and coasting, so he is fuel saving. Garrett Thompson, meanwhile, having the inside line on the exit for the hairpin, but this is going to be side by side on the run up to turn 7. Boyson, I think, is just going to lift off and let these guys go, and he does. Well, at least in Thompson's case, he doesn't let Plummer by.
Yeah, it was 2 tyres on the grass on the exit there for the McLaren. Really hurt putting the traction down, and definitely might have cost him the spot in the end there. And once again, Zach Plummer taking alternative lines, but it's not the quickest way through there. He's lost out just a little bit as well. Lost a car length or 2, might get it back.
Yeah, and with all of this, if these guys start to battle a bit further, we look a bit behind Plummer. We can see Aaron Ackles and Maxime Detilly starting to draw up on these guys. They're setting pretty competitive lap times around the same as Plummer. So we're going to see this battle potentially get to 5 cars. Meanwhile, 2 in a row for Tyson Meyer, fastest lap of the race, as he chases down Adam Crane to try and get this 2nd position back. And Meyer hasn't had the most consistent start to this race. He has just made a couple of mistakes in the first few laps, which has meant that he's fallen back. But once those tyres get up to temperature, we know that Tyson Meyer can really get the best out of that Geodesic Audi.
And here's the other move, Plummer through and into 5th. So I think the tyre's starting to warm up for some of our drivers, and the Audi's starting to come on a little strong. Now that they've had a couple of laps, now they've burnt a little bit of fuel. Tyson Meyer, was scruffy at the start, but it's starting to come together now.
Indeed it is. That's a great view from the back of Adam Crane there. And you see how they both attack these curbs. Crane trying to use as much of that curb as he can. Meyer absolutely monstering it. Let's see if there's any line difference here into the last couple turns. They take pretty much the same line, but you can see there's a potential opportunity there for Meyer to get through. As long as he nails the exit, he can stay in touch with Crane.
Yep, certainly has a tiny look to the inside, but I think in these cars with, wide slicks and plenty of downforce, turn 1's just not a hard enough braking zone to really put a move in there. Really, you're looking for the best run you can here up over the crest, and we've seen most of our moves happen down the inside on the left here. Is he close enough this time?
Oh, very deep on the brakes is Meyer, almost getting into the back of Crane there, but fortunately, no harm, no foul. He has lost a bit of pace there at the apex. The gap's extended a little bit more.
Yeah, you wonder, is he thinking about and worrying about his teammate Olivier getting away? These guys are going to battle for a little bit, and all that time, Tyson Meyer, the lead might get a tiny bit further away from him. Now, of course, we do still expect a pit stop in this class. Expect being an understatement. There's absolutely no way that they're doing 75 minutes on 1 tank of fuel, and here comes some of the traffic as well.
Yep, first bit of lap traffic. Luke Watajek letting our 2nd and 3rd place cars go as we see Alan Powell in the GS class around. Not quite sure where that is. I think that might be down second last corner. So building optimization systems replay then. Let's see what happened to him.
Yeah, indeed. We'll know in a little bit of a corner's time, but wherever he ended up was not good. You saw all the cars streaming past, and you end up having to put that car on the tow hook. So here we are, just a tiny bit of grass on the outside, sends the car around, nose finds the barrier, and then, my goodness, what a difficult place to be parked, just about where the apex is there, and the cars are going to be pretty unsighted coming over the hill. Unfortunately, Alan Powell looks like he's mostly done that all by himself. And then here we go, our leaders trying to work their way around the traffic. Tyson Meyer had all of the GT4 cars to dodge.
He absolutely did, and he lost some more time to Crane as a result of that, but he's wasted no time getting back onto the back of Crane. And the thing about that that run into the penultimate turn, the curbs are mostly very wide in that section, at least on the apex, but exit curbs around here, very narrow, so it can be misleading. Here's another replay of Stacey Dunnigan in the BMW going for a move here on the number 131 Big Bone car. Jack Anderett going nice and wide and letting Stacey go there. And, oh, Adam Crane has jumped into the pit lane, I've just noticed. So, taking an early pit stop on lap 9. Interesting.
Yeah, we've got Andrew Taylor also on the lane, and I think that looks like a retirement. So what's going on for Crane here? It's coming from a very solid position out on track. Is this an attempt at an undercut? Is this a problem? I guess we'll know briefly.
It looks like a very short stop there for Crane. He is immediately out of the pits, putting a bit of fuel in, no tyres, a 10-second stop. So Crane back out onto the circuit now, and the battle for 5th, Johan Boyson's still facing a lot of pressure here from Aaron Ackles.
Certainly, and they've got more of those GS class cars in front of them. Ackles doing very well bouncing across those curbs there, and a spinneroonie for one of our GT class cars. Yep, so 16th place there, Dimitri Guzfat losing out just a little bit. Here we go, some moves trying to happen through the traffic. Difficult to do this cleanly.
Yeah, very difficult. Boyson having to take some alternate lines here and go for the move there on Sam Holden. And will Ackles be able to get by Holden before the final turn? No, he won't. This is going to be very awkward for him. Holden going wide, but Ackles is only losing pace here now. He's been massively disadvantaged by that, but no fault of Holden as he has to go to the middle. Bit of a pincer move by the two GT cars. Maxime Detilly smells blood. He is right on the back of Ackles now.
Yeah, indeed. So just difficult trying to pass through the corner, and you know the GT3 cars will get a lot more punch off the corners. They should be quicker through the middle of the corner, but just was not finding it easy in that particular section. You see Maxime Detilly here, not quite close enough for a strike at this moment, unless there's more problems for Ackles.
Yeah, seems like he lost most of that time that he gained in turns 1 and 2, but we'll see what happens to him from there. Meanwhile, David Browning having to let a GT class car go. He's fighting with Luke Watajek for 9th in class. Browning, the Team Tortuga. He's not had the greatest start at the moment, but we know that Browning has a lot of skill under him, and he can certainly get the car to the finish. Be interesting to see how it works out between himself and his opponents.
Yeah, it certainly will be interesting to see. He's we've had quite a bit of shuffling, I think, in this GS class. You know, Taron leading it at the moment. Solid battle here, 3rd and 4th. Seeing Brian Lockwood in overall standings, he's up 11 spots as there's someone in the barrier there.
Tyson.
Is that
Tyson? Is it?
Surely that's the only Geodesic Racing Audi. More damage on the rear wing. He's going to park the thing again. What has happened in turn 1 for your points leader?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Meyer into turn 1. I just overcooked it. Bit too fast into turn 1, losing the rear end.
He found a ramp. Found a ramp in the outfield there. Kind of looked like he had it under control. The car slides in the middle of the corner. He tries to catch it. It pushes out wide. And then here, boom, all in the air, finds that barrier. Very reminiscent of maybe like China Beach at Mid-Ohio or something. You go too far off the course and find yourself in the air headed for the barrier. That is a bizarre one, and he'll be ruining that mistake and also ruining that he couldn't catch it. I think that's a retirement.
I think it might be, and that's not going to be good times for Tyson Meyer and the Geodesic camp as the race continues for our other GT class cars, and Brian Lockwood certainly getting a great exit here versus Graham Sanders, but Sanders just moving over, a little defensive as the Audi went through, gave Lockwood the chance that he needed. He's through at turn 1, bit of a slide for good measure, but he's got it done.
Yeah, that car did not like hitting that curb in the middle of the corner. Lockwood setting his move up very well through the traffic there, and then one of the few moves we've seen stick into turn 1 so far this race. Here comes yet more traffic. And we think that's maybe why Crane pitted from the GT class, as he saw all of this traffic coming. He's made an early stop and found himself, for the most part, a bit of clear track. Let's see if he makes decisive work here, and he will. So, on all counts, it looks like it was a strategy move from Crane to pit early, maybe get most of the pit service done, and also find himself a bit of clear track.
Yeah, well, that's something that is going to be an element here at Barber. Not many straights to speak of, and you're turning about 90% of the time. And it's a pretty twisty circuit. So if you can minimize your interactions with traffic, you will gain a big advantage. We'll see how that works out for Crane.
Yep, indeed we will. So I guess through all of this, I'm feeling like a recap on where we are. Olivia leading in the GT class after jumping his teammate, who now looks like he's out. So for Geodesic Racing, in what's sort of their own series, he's got to fly the flag there. Plummer, great job, up 3 positions into second, and Garrett Thompson also picking up where some others are failing. He's into 3rd place from 6th on the grid.
Yeah, excellent runs from many of our GT class cars at the moment. Johan Boysen sitting in 4th, unfortunately losing a spot from his starting position, but holding off very nicely versus Aaron Ackles, who completes the top 5. And we see the likes of Maxime Detilly as well. It'll be interesting to see what he can do. And what can Hayden Gober do from his position? His teammate now up into 2nd. The Action Sim Sport Audis have been a fixture of the series. Oh no! Another problem for Watajek. And that is a spin at the second last turn, I believe. Or actually turn 1, I correct myself. So what happened there to him, just taking too much curb onto 2 wheels. And with the suspension compression, when you get off that curb, well, not much you can do if the car decides to let go. Big damage.
Yeah, he found the wall right there with the rescue truck. In the end, he didn't quite need them. But yeah, whole front panel off. That guy gives a wave to say, "What on earth are you doing? Are you good there? Shake it off, mate. Get back out there." But I'm not sure that is particularly good damage to have on your car.
No, certainly not. And that's going to be quite an issue for Watajek going forward. He'll have to spend a lot of time in the pits getting that fixed. It's on for 4th, though, in our GT class. Held up with traffic of Justin Tipton. Aaron Ackles right on the back of Johan Boysen now. And the question is, does he want to actually get by? Does he want to start fuel saving a little bit? I don't know what the fuel saving situation would be in the GT class, but you'd certainly think any opportunity you get to minimize your pit time is beneficial.
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, it's not going to be a particularly large fuel drop. These have got the fully professional rigs. It's the GS class car there, gets in the way a little bit. Ackles is gonna get through this time. Not their own fault. It's just the luck of the dice where that falls. Sometimes it favors you, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, if we're talking maybe a 10-second fuel drop required, you're only going to cut that down to 1 or 2 seconds. More dramas for Browning and the GS class. If you are in the business of selling front covers for these Caymans, you are in business here in Alabama.
You certainly are, and that was a bit too wide on the turn 2 exit for David Browning. Again, those narrow exit curbs catching drivers out. So Dimitro Guzva into the pits now, taking some service. And this particular car, one that me and Jay definitely showed our appreciation for in terms of livery, Giovanni Romano in that lavender sim racing Porsche. Very pleasant color of machine.
Yeah, and he's just set his personal best lap of the race as well as we go and look to him, because he's closing down Berteffer in front just a little bit and finding his stride as well, as we say, his personal best lap that time, and almost, dare I say, good enough to be maybe the second or third fastest car in class out there that time around. So he's got the sights set, he's putting in the clean laps, so we'll see where that gets him. Not quite seeing any hint of a fuel saving though. Let's Let's see if that's something anyone is still trying in this class. It's only going to be a short drop of fuel if they do need to pit, though.
Yeah, and if the guys around you have been fuel saving, that drop can be the difference it makes between potentially winning and finishing outside the top 5 if things get crazy towards the end. But Romano staying nice and consistent there behind John Botifer. What advances will he be able to make? We'll find out more towards the end of this race. Coming up on 52 minutes to go. As we see the battle for 4th and GT getting close once again. Johan Boysen still maintaining the gap to Aaron Ackles out of traffic. It seems like when they're out of traffic, Boysen is definitely the faster car here. But you can see that Ackles is starting to lose a bit of ground to Maxime Detilly behind him.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, sometimes this compresses up. We've almost got 4 cars still in a battle here. And then, without the traffic, it spreads out a little bit. But it's not a particularly long lap around here. There will always be traffic as we go through this race for these guys. So how they deal with that, very, very critical indeed. Ackles looks like he goes a little wide. Maybe had a touch of understeer there through the final complex, but then he's done well off the exit of it. So you can see these 4 cars here. That's 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Hayden Gober in the Audi, just trying to keep touch with this battle here. Personal best lap times from Boysen, Ackles, and Detilly that time. So I think the track is coming towards these guys as they're burning through the fuel. Tires are probably smack bang in the middle of the window now. And obviously the track favorable, no traffic for these guys that time. Personal best laps.
Yes, indeed. Side by side between Stacey Dunnigan and Adam Crane, who we must remind you is the first GT car to have pitted. It looks like Dunnigan getting a good run there around the outside. Crane not able to capitalize on that. Should mention the track temperature as well. It's now down to 31 degrees. That will explain as well the turn of pace that we're seeing as Crane tries to sneak up the inside here at turn 7. Oh, Stacey Dunnigan holding it very well around the outside, but overcooking it in the second phase of the corner. So Crane getting the run, getting the launch, side by side again potentially. No, Dunnigan yields.
Yeah, so Crane has it in the end. Cast our eyes back forward once again to Tilly, looking menacing here, and that looked like a little bit of a slide at the rear for Ackles, and someone else is around in the final corner as well. So final corner proving a little difficult. Browning in the GS class once again.
Yeah, big shame for him. So still carrying that very heavy damage as Browning, but this battle now for 4th and GT. Battle for 5th specifically we're looking at the moment in the frame. There's 4th place off to your left, Johan Boysen. But Maxime Detilly setting a time 0.2 faster than Aaron Ackles on the last lap. So tyre temperature right up where it needs to be for Maxime. What can Aaron do? Maybe he's overcooked them in these first 19 laps of this race. And Tyson Meyer, our points leader coming into this round, winner of round 1, is confirmed as a retirement from this one. So that is going to really hurt him. You don't want to be having results like that this early on in the series. You want to get your title campaign off to as strong a start as possible.
Here we go, bit of traffic for this battle. Boysen gets on through. Here comes Ackles and Detilly. Ackles looking under a little bit of pressure, but he stays in line, and both of these guys get given the preferred line through the final corner. Detilly still closing, but maybe not quite close enough for turn 1. Pressure certainly on right here. And, I'm noticing, missing the apex in some places, bit of a slide of the rear in other places for Ackles. Might have been a car that was quick in qualifying. It's certainly maybe a little pointy. I'm not sure it's working quite as well in the race.
Yeah, that's the thing. You want to be able to set a car up well here to turn on the front, and just with the sheer amount of tight and sweeping bends this place has. So if you don't look after your rears, it's going to work out badly for you later on in the stint, but they're staying consistent for now. The time that Maxime Detilly set on that last lap was a 10th faster again, so going to be interesting to see how that top 5 battle plays out.
Yeah, certainly will be a couple of battles for this class. Plummer and Thompson, second and third, also kind of battling it out as well. So it is very close. And another Cayman in the wall.
Yeah.
Final corner, it looks like. So almost a carbon copy of what we had seen for Browning a minute ago, unless this building optimization systems replay tells us otherwise.
Well, John Botifer going a bit too wide on the exit of the final turn and straight into the pit wall there. So that makes yet another Cayman out on track, missing its hood, which is a big shame. Meanwhile, this battle for third place in our GT class and second really starting to heat up, because Garrett Thompson, the teammate to Aaron Ackles, is chasing down Mr. Plummer in the Action Sim Sports Audi, and he's looking quite quick. 2/10 on the last lap. Here's another building optimization systems replay. The pass has happened with Aaron Ackles.
Yeah, position lost for Boyson, actually, so I don't know, you have a bit of problems there, and then Ackles goes down the inside. So we were worried about Detilly making a move on Ackles, but actually it's Boyson we maybe should have been worried about there.
Well, that is the way things have worked out for now. And Garrett Thompson trying his best to get onto the back of Zach Plummer here. It looks like this Ferrari starting to come into its own here. What's the time going to be like this time round? 22.4 for Plummer, 22.6 for Thompson. So Plummer getting some of his time back.
Yeah, indeed. Different lines again through that very, very long right-hander. Some keeping it tight, some taking the double apex battle here. 8th and 9th. Crane has already pitted. He's trying to work his way back up through the field. Not able to get by Jason Gotter just yet, and that's the risk in this strategy from Crane. Got out of a bit of the traffic of the GS class just to spend quite a bit of time in the traffic of the GT class.
Yeah, and you do stand to lose time even behind cars in your class, because we know that Adam Crane very quick around this place. He did qualify in 4th. He's battling at the moment for down here in 8th and 9th place. But we'll have to wait and see how it affects his strategy later on, whether or not we'll see him enter the pits again at some point to try and make up something. He's gotten a great exit, meanwhile, from 7B, but he hasn't got alongside enough to try and get the pass done here. Gotter running onto the grass slightly. That's a very high octane part of the racetrack. Easy to make a mistake.
Yeah, and blind over the crest. They've just come through now to the final sector, to where pit entry is, and Crane setting it up very, very wide, hoping to get a run towards turn 1, and it just has to be a run towards the hairpin.
Maxime Detilly, meanwhile, second of our GT class front runners to come into the pits. Boyson staying out there and lost some time to Mr. Ackles up ahead of him. But these two, Gotter and Crane, still fighting. The gap is consistent between them. You can tell that Adam Crane searching desperately for a way past here, because it does look like Jason Gotter is the slower car at the moment.
Yeah, certainly does. My read on the strategy there is Detilly's just become disillusioned with sitting behind Ackles and Boyson and is pitted to get out of that. He's made a pretty good pit stop. He has come out quite a bit behind Crane here. So of the cars that have pitted, Adam Crane's not looking in a particularly bad position.
Yeah, certainly not. We'll just have to wait and see how it goes for him. He's still behind Jason Gotter at the moment, and the battle that has become for the lower reaches of the top 10 now. Maxime Detilly coming out of the pits just behind these guys, and Jack Anderek as well in 10th place. So, tell you what, pass happening at turn 1. Adam Crane has gotten past Jason Gotter. So that's move done for him, and it looked like pretty easy done as well. He got a great run out of the last turn and sized it up perfectly.
Yeah, much better run, nose towards the inside, and Crane has been forcing these moves there as well. Only had a little bit in it, but then had the inside and move well done from Crane there. So that's critical to the strategy.
Yes, indeed. The lead in GS, meanwhile, is starting to close because Andrew Caron, well, he's looked pretty comfortable in the lead since the start, but now facing some pressure from Justin Tipton, who gained 2/10 on him on the last lap. So the Racecraft Esports guys now back into second and third. This is actually similar to the order they finished at Interlagos last round, and Mr. Tipton will be hoping to make a change for that and get a win for Racecraft, as Brian Lockwood has to let some GT class cars go, losing a bit of time. He is very far behind these guys, but still running third. Definitely an improvement from his starting position. What can Tipton do versus Caron?
Yeah, it will definitely be interesting in that regard. Tipton, obviously the pole sitter, so 1 lap pace was pretty strong. But in this battle, you know, a lot of it could come down to where the faster class cars lap them, how they do that. Caron, 2 wheels in the grass for a little bit there, so he's obviously pushing for all of the track and all of the speed he can get. This is definitely an interesting one for the lead here, and it's relatively evenly matched, even though Tipton seems to have a tiny bit more pace. He can't get much closer than this.
Yeah, well, making passes at Barber can be difficult. I mean, we've seen quite a few of them, but it's not a track where it can be super easily done at a lot of the corners. And in this GS class, a class that relies on mechanical grip more than downforce, it's all about where you position the car, all about your runs out of the corners. And Tipton, it seems, is getting that done quite nicely. A smooth turn into the hairpin. Andrew Caron setting a 28.5 on the last lap. Justin Tipton a 28.4, gaining a 10th.
The one thing I think that makes passing far more possible around here than it otherwise would is I think it's a lot harder to be consistent in GS class cars than it is for GT3 machinery. You know, just that how much more they move about over the curbs, how much more body roll and pitch and movement there is. And Detilly, having made his pit stop, is trying to work his way back through this traffic, and you know what, he's not timed it particularly well, unfortunately, I have to say, because he'd come out right behind a battle of 4 other cars. Sure, he appears to have the speed to move through a little bit, might try and pick off another one, but you know, if he could have stayed out a little bit longer, might have ended up in front of this train. It's costing him a little bit, but he is making good work of it.
Yeah, he certainly is. Mark Noski making a mistake there on exit, and that's going to let Maxime through here coming into turn 7. And that's going to give a bit of an opportunity as well to Jack Anderek, who is now right in the midst of this battle here for the lower reaches of the top 10. So Maxime Detilly has actually assisted this battle to become a little bit closer.
Yeah, he did get quite lucky there, but a very, very good job to basically pick off 3 cars in 1 lap. Anyway, and riding on board with Dunnigan, who must have picked up that damage on the front of the BMW pretty early. Doesn't look to be hurting so bad. Straight line speed still looks good, and a dive down the inside here. I flagged that one up earlier. Much tighter line, but that's going to put you on the outside for the final corner. You hold it there. Maybe that is a very unique move and pretty brave.
Yeah, around the outside at the final corner is possible, as we are getting a replay. Once again, something happening to Brian Lockwood. He's found the wall from 3rd place, and that looks like exit of turn 2, running over the curb and onto the grass. Once he lost grip, not much he could do. Oh, that was so close. Almost damage for Brian Lockwood, just managing to keep it out of the wall. At least he has that.
Yeah, wow, that was very, very close indeed. Just got it pulled up, and it shows just how slippery that grass is, and especially at a point like there where the car is still fully loaded coming through the corner. The track is starting to pick up as well from the descent. Begins to go uphill, so you've got the car loaded from the elevation change, the car loaded from the corner, and then 2 tires on the grass. That thing was always gonna spin.
Tell you what, Stacey Dunnigan is looking incredibly pacey at the moment as these guys are coming up to traffic. That's Justin Rem in the GT4 that they've just gotten by, and whoa, hello. Looks like Jack Anderek taking that opportunity to go for the pits. He's decided, no, I've had enough of all this pack battling. I'm going to get myself into the pits, get myself some clean air.
Yeah, and it's Jason Goddard in as well. It's tough to see on that car of Anderek, but he has a bit of damage, I think, on the back right. And I don't know if it's thinking maybe they can get that fixed as well. But yeah, it's sort of a bit of a droop on the right-hand side there.
Oh, yeah, we can see that right now. Thank you very much, Jay. Operating the joystick. And away he goes, and wow, have a look at that. That's a great view of getting going, because the Jason Goddard getting going at exactly the same time as Jack Anderek. They're going to come out together.
Yeah, the camera car giving chase at exactly the right point, very Hollywood, and that's what you get here on SimSpeed TV.
Beautiful stuff. Oh,
big
no.
dramas for Adam Crane on the tow hook, smoke from the engine, whole of the front missing. That is difficult for the man who was trying to fight back through the pit field after an early pit stop.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see what happened to him at the fast chicane, potentially. No, got through there okay, but he was dealing with some traffic here. Was he able to get through, or did he just go in too deep, lose the rear end, and smack into the wall? And there's no way that you can continue from something like that. Graham Sanders, I reckon, did nothing wrong there. Just looked like Adam Crane went into the corner on the very tight line, and away he went.
Yeah, so obviously just, the tighter line bouncing across maybe a little bit more of the curb than usual, misread how much speed he could bring in, and around a lot of damage for Crane. Dunnigan still looking to pick up more position.
Yeah, that 8th spot here in our GT class looking under threat here, because Dunnigan has had a great turn of pace in these last few laps. Got more GT cars that have pitted meanwhile. Lee Overton has come out just behind Jason Gotter and Jack Anderek, so this is turning into a nice little 3-car battle for just outside the top 10. Meanwhile, our lead is under threat in GS because Andrew Caron going wide in turn 2. This has given the advantage to Justin Tipton, and this could potentially be a pass if Tipton times it right. He does have a look, but he's a bit too far back to make the move at the moment. But tell you what, a little bit of a slip up from Caron. That means that the lead is in trouble.
Yeah, certainly is. I'd say that these guys fighting would help Brian Lockwood in third, but he is a little bit further back because of that spin that we saw. And it looks like some dramas for Maxime Detilly.
Yeah, let's have a look at what happened to him here. It was out of the final corner, and just catching the grass on again, the narrow exit curbs, and to boot, getting a bit of damage to the rear too, into the pit wall. So that's a big shame for Maxime. He was certainly on for a good position in our GT class.
Definitely had been an exciting man to watch, battling through the field there. And unfortunately, it's not the smoothest J-turn I've ever seen executed. I thought, big flick there, maybe he was going to save it, but unfortunately finds a little bit of the pit wall, and not the first person to hit the pit wall in that section there. The total lack of runoff on the exit of the final corner and how slippery the grass is. My goodness, we've seen that catch out a handful of cars now.
Yeah, and I feel like we might see it catch out a handful more before we're done. We're past halfway. And coming up on half an hour to go as we see Garrett Thompson bring the Quasar car into the pits. He was running
Long stop.
in third. Yeah, very long stop there. So he might have a couple of extra things to sort out on that machine. Meanwhile, battle for the last position in the top 10 now, held by Jack Anderek and Jason Goddard, who's come out of the pits just behind him, looking to attack.
Yeah, indeed. Still little bit of body damage on the back of the car for Jack Anderek. I don't know if that's exactly how it was before they managed to patch any of that up, but certainly he was going backwards a little bit. He was under pressure from Dunnigan before the pit stop. Now he's under pressure from Gotta after the pit stop, and our leader is on the lane. A lot of the GT3 teams and drivers deciding pit stop is now for GT class.
Yeah, so splitting the race nice and cleanly in two, and our GS class lead with Johan Boyson keeping them very close company at the moment. Boyson, another one of the cars that has yet to pit, and Dominic Olivier just out of his box and out of the lane now. He's going to come out still ahead of Boyson here, so not losing too many positions. Question is, Zach Plummer and Aaron Ackles, now they're going to have to respond.
Yeah, indeed. Only a couple cars that haven't pitted as it stands right now, and they'll be wondering where they come out. About the pit stop times, you know, we're seeing 7 seconds of fuel for some, 12 seconds of fuel for others. There's a couple longer stops in the field there. Garrett Thompson, I said, a bit of a long stop, took 23 seconds of service. There's 28 seconds of service for Jason Gotta. That's why he finds himself back where he is. Maxime Detilly, though, trying to make good after reversing into the pit wall.
Yeah, just getting past, or trying to get past here. Just gotten past.
Detilly,
My apologies,
so
Mark Noski.
that car's hurting for anything. It's not for attack, because Noski has just gone back one spot. It's quite a sad looking rear of a McLaren, but does not seem to be hurting Detilly too much.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, something you can take away from that. Maxime still has the pace he needs to try and get a few more positions before the end of this one, and a little bit of traffic as well for good measure, but Graham Sanders is cleared very nicely before the turn-in point. So we are now starting to think about drivers in our GT field like Ackles, like Boyson, like Gober. Those guys haven't pitted yet. And we are still waiting to see where exactly they're going to come out. We've still got the question of whether or not some of our GS cars are going to come into the pits, because remember, there is potential for a fuel saver. I haven't really seen much fuel saving from our GS class, so not quite sure how it's going to work out. But this battle for the top 10 in GT, getting involved with traffic. Oh, wow. Yeah, that was quite the slide from Anderek behind. He's lost a lot of time there to Mr. Gotta, who's chasing down Stacey Dunnigan. Let's have a look at the building optimization systems replay. See what happened on board with Jack Anderek. Takes all the curb through the dip, over the rise, and it looks like he just lost the rear. What a save.
Quick hands. Yeah, indeed, quick hands to save it, and could have been a lot worse. Again, another one of those corners where we've seen some damage and some wrecks. So Anderek lost a little bit of time to that, but could have been so much worse. Very smart reaction to save the car.
So Jason Gotta now does not have the pressure that he was facing from Anderek before, and is free to chase down Stacey Dunnigan. And we saw the good turn of pace that Dunnigan had some laps before, but looks like that has gone for now. We got to remember Dunnigan hasn't come into the pits yet, so it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. I correct myself again. Dunnigan pitted 3 laps ago. We have an excuse on Sim Speed. It's early in the morning for us here. This is a Thursday night league for American audiences, but of course we're in Australia, so waking up early on a Friday morning, got to get some caffeine in you before you're somewhat coherent.
Yeah, indeed. And we also didn't see that one on camera to my memory, but per my timing screen, Jason Goddard was a bit higher up the order, had a long stop. Hayden Gober, who hasn't pitted yet, is having some dramas.
Yeah, let's have a look at what happened to him, thanks to building optimization systems once again. And this, oh, ouch. Oh, okay. So that was a very abrupt incident there, and it shows the dangers of those walls that run very close to the track in that particular section. That's the fast chicane of turns 9 and 10 on the back stretch, just catching the grass on entry this time. Very easy mistake to make. You want to try and widen your entry to that as much as possible, but unfortunately, Hayden Gober was running in the top 5, but now that's looking doubtful.
Yeah, there's also a spin and contact for Geodesic in the GS class at the same time. So Barber taking absolutely no prisoners. There's already some damage on that car. So yeah, a lot of guys having struggles out there as well. Still got 1 or 2 pit stops to see for GT class. We haven't really seen any scheduled service out of GS class yet.
No, we haven't, and we just saw Hayden Gober there in the pits getting damage repaired. Who knows, it might be a retirement for him. But the battle between Dunnigan and Goddard for this top 10. And now we do know that both of these cars are pitted, so this is an out-and-out battle between these two for what has now become 8th and 9th.
Yeah, indeed. So whatever the reason for that long stop for Goddard, causing a bit of troubles, and BMW proving very, very difficult to pass indeed. The inside line held from Giovanni Romano, but he's just going to let the faster class cars around the outside. So Goddard, a lot of work to do in the remaining minutes.
Yeah, of which there are just about 26. So this race has flown by so far. A lot happening here at Barber Motorsports Park. We know from previous seasons, the Geodesic GoPro Championship, there's always something going on in the field. You just got to know where to look. And Barber certainly turning it up again. Speaking of, have a look at the battle for the lead in our GS class. Jay says, how's that? I say, that's good. It's down to 4/10 now between Caron and Tipton. And have a look at Tipton going very deep into the hairpin. He smells blood here. He wants to try and get this done.
Certainly does. He's very, very close. But what is going to help? Dunnigan in the wall. More damage on that BMW.
Oh, what a shame for Stacey Dunnigan. Especially with the pace we've seen. So where did this happen? This happened down in the final sector. And just catching...
Oh, someone else was already off. And that's probably just spooked Stacey Dunnigan. Elijah Mitchell already in the grass there. You'd come over that crest, and how much notice are you going to have? A quarter of a second distracting, and 2 tires on the grass for Stacey Dunnigan. So yeah, if yellows breed yellows, then maybe incidents are breeding incidents here. So here is the initial incident for Elijah Mitchell. Very, very reminiscent of Crane.
Okay. And there, we'll see Dunnigan come up very shortly. There they are. And Dunnigan just coming right past on the grass and into the wall. That's a big shame there. On for a top 10 was Dunnigan. But Elijah Mitchell is going to manage to keep going out of that. But they will both be in the pits repairing massive, massive damage. Our lead in GS continuing to boil away under 4/10 now. Justin Tipton bumper to bumper with Andrew Caron.
Yeah, it will be difficult to get past without some kind of mistake for Caron, but it's pretty easy to make a mistake in these cars. Tilly goes down the inside. Tipton might smell an opportunity.
Oh, take it easy, guys. Looks like it's all worked out nicely. Tipton wasn't quite able to take advantage there because of the position of the GT car. So that's brought the gap out a little bit between these guys, but we know that Tipton has some great pace here in this second half of the race, and the question of fuel saving is still an issue. Will Caron have to pit due to being pressured here by Justin Tipton?
Yeah, bite your nails for that one towards the end of the race here, I think, will be very, very interesting to see. There's still no one who's taken regular service yet. We've had repairs for John Botifer. We've had, unfortunately, connection problems for Sam Holden. No one else on the lane for just a regular fuel stop in this class yet. Or did they get close there?
Yeah, they certainly did. This is a great view from Justin Tipton. You can really get an idea of how the GS cars attack this circuit. It's very smooth lines, very gentle arcs through the corners for these things. But when you're actually behind the wheel, you're working it incredibly hard. And it looks like, is that Dunnigan behind them? Yes, it is. Dunnigan just coming out of the pits, having taken that damage repair, sitting in 11th in the GT class, coming up on our lead battle in GS. We'll see how this works out, because with that damage, that BMW will have lost a good amount of pace. But it does look like Dunnigan is going to split our two leaders in GS from there. So Tipton losing a little bit more of a gap, which he won't be too happy about.
Yeah, and I'm sure Stacey Dunnigan not happy about the amount of repairs required, but honestly, the BMW looks better than before the incident. They've done a very, very good job. They fixed the rear wing. The front has been put back together. The only real damage remaining is over the front right wheel arch. So a lot of time lost for Dunnigan. Last GT class car running at the moment, but still running. We've had, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 retirements from that class. So just a finish for Dunnigan, better than some others are doing, including Tyson Meyer.
Yeah, I did not expect this many retirements in our GT class, but just goes to show that Barber is an incredibly tough track, especially in multi-class GT racing. Sam Holden just getting past David Browning a lap ago. Browning carrying some heavy damage. Holden now up to P7 in the GS class, and with a nice clean car, looks like he's on for a consistent result here.
Yeah, just doesn't want any repeat of the dramas from earlier. Just bring a clean car home from here. Sam Holden would probably be the objective.
Exactly right. And the GS class lead, Andrew Caron, with a little bit of protection now from Justin Tipton, but he's still pushing it incredibly hard. You can see how he works the wheel through those last couple of turns. And we'll get a read on their lap times here. It's 1 minute 29.0 from Andrew Caron, and 29.0 again from Justin Tipton, only 0.05 of a second faster that time round. So these guys are matching each other wonderfully.
Yeah, certainly are. Very, very similar pace, and has been for quite a while now. It feels like 30 minutes or so. This has just been brewing and bubbling, and we're waiting to see anticipation what might happen strategy-wise, if Tipton can make a move out on track. It's one to watch, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. It's always interesting seeing how drivers approach overtaking in this GS class machine. They do have anti-lock brakes, but it's often not advantageous to lean on the ABS in these cars, because it can actually increase your braking distance and scrub your tires a bit. ABS doesn't quite work by easing off the brakes to prevent them from locking. It goes on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. So if you don't want your tires chattering, you do need to be smooth on the brakes in these things.
Yeah, we'll see ABS and the traction control separated from each other this morning on this car, I believe. So yeah, so a little bit more adjustability to the ABS and the traction control for our drivers than they maybe anticipated they were going to have. So that might be helping them out throughout the run, just tuning that to their feel, to their comfort zone.
Looks like Justin Tipton easing up to the back of Andrew Caron once again. You see the difference in approach to that hairpin. Tipton taking that narrower V-shaped entry to the corner, trying to gain a couple of extra meters of track position. He knows that time is running out in this race. He knows that there's not much time left to get this move done.
Yeah, certainly I'm seeing maybe 13 laps, maybe 12 for this class. So, you know, time flies when you're having fun. And fun is what some have been having at Tipton. No, in the wall.
Oh no! Just as we were talking, my goodness! It's all gone wrong for Justin. And that is a double podium for Racecraft Esports in jeopardy. Let's have a look at the replay. And it looks like he did this all on his own. Tipton pushing really hard through the fast chicane and just getting into the grass. Once that thing started sliding, there was no recovering it.
Do you have a sick bag? I'm dizzy after watching that replay. You know, he's pushing for everything he can get. He bounces over maybe a little bit more curb than he normally would. He's trying to save the slide off the curb. That's when the outside rear tire goes on the grass. And from that point, straight to the tire barrier. No tires there. Straight to the Armco for Justin Tipton.
Well, he's going to have to pit for some damage, and Zach Plummer, who had been leading our GT class, is now pitted, so that's given the lead back to Dominic Olivier, who is currently experiencing a little bit of traffic here in the form of Jason Goddard. And Tipton straight into the pits to get that damage repaired. We'll see how much that hurts him in the end. It does promote his teammate Brian Lockwood to second, but I tell you what, Lockwood would be unhappy that it came at the expense of his teammate.
Yep, certainly. And Lockwood almost too far away to challenge for the lead unless there is a rabbit to pull out of a hat on strategy. That is such a shame. That battle we were waiting with great anticipation to see what would happen, but not to see that happen.
Yeah, for sure. Bit anticlimactic, actually. We always like to see an on-track pass, an on-track battle for the lead of a race. We certainly saw it at Interlagos in both classes. So, unfortunately, we will not get one today. But, regardless, it's still been quite the interesting race. Strategy permutations in the GS class still have yet to be decided. With 15 minutes to go, will we see some GS cars jump into the pits? That is the big question.
I'm not sure. I wanted to say what I thought about it, and then I realized I have no idea.
Neither do I.
So let's wait and see. All I can tell you is the lead Andrew Caron has got over Brian Lockwood, 15 seconds. It's not enough to make a pit stop if Lockwood doesn't need to. So if there's anyone who does need to pit and the rest of the field doesn't, I can't see anyone who's going to hold on to their spot if they need to take a splash and others don't. You know, if Caron needs a splash, Lockwood would take the win. If Lockwood needs a splash, Sanders would take second place. If Sanders needs a splash, Romano would stand on the podium. So either they all pit, or none of them do, or, you know, we've got a sting in the tail.
Yeah, and just how venomous will that sting be? We'll find out. Johan Boyson, meanwhile, promoted to third spot, back into the position he started in as a result of various happenings in our GT class. And he's chasing down Aaron Ackles again. We've seen these guys coming together more towards the start of this race, and now looks like they might just come together again. 23-4 from Ackles with 24-0 from Boyson. That's huge fuel saving into turn one. So let's listen to him coming into this hairpin. Have a look at how early he lifts off. Wow. Okay, so Boyson might be in trouble for fuel here.
Well, he hasn't pitted yet, so...
Is he going for a no-stopper?
Well, I tell you what, the McLaren has the biggest fuel tank of all of the cars in class, 130 litres, I believe. GT3 cars should be able to do more than 60 minutes. Can they do 75 minutes? That is out of left field, but I think if any car could do it, it'd be the McLaren. You wouldn't drive like this unless you thought it was possible.
No, certainly not. So we'll keep our eyes on Boyson because he has potential here to pull off quite the interesting drive. We've got a retirement, meanwhile, for both Justin Tipton and John Miller. So very unfortunate for those guys. And Brian Lockwood now, the sole man flying the flag for Racecraft Esports in our GS class. As we see Aaron Ackles jump into the pits there. So Johan Boyson now promoted to second spot. It looks like if he is able to hold on, he might get that second spot. And Mark Noski here has not pitted yet either.
Yes, we'll see what happens for those two drivers. Still, I mean, not a long time, but a long way to go still in this race. And Noski is going to go on to pit entry. Quite a difficult pit entry here. A nice pit exit. That's quite the difficult pit entry there as well.
Yeah, it's almost like almost a double hairpin, double right angle corner, like a street circuit, and there's no room if you mess up. So Aaron Ackles then coming out in position 5, 3 seconds behind Garrett Thompson. So the two Quasar Sim Racing teammates, both in the top 5, they'll be happy with that eventuality for sure.
Yep, certainly would also give them a good haul of points with a bit of racing still to go. Who's going to be faster between these two? Can Ackles close it down a little bit at the end here? We'll see. That'd give them some entertainment. It'd certainly give us some entertainment as well.
Yeah, certainly would. Don't know if there's team orders at Quasar Sim Racing, but hopefully we get a chance to find out pretty soon. But Ackles dealing with some traffic right now in the GS class. John Botifer, who has had quite the difficult race, still carrying some damage on the front of his Cayman, but he manages to hold on to that last car running position in class at the moment. Interesting news, and I'll let you relay it, David.
Well, Brian Lockwood is absolutely pushing on. He's closed the gap to the lead down a couple seconds over the last few laps. Lockwood's setting very close to personal best pace. Andrew Caron, on the other hand, is about a second off his personal best. This was 15 seconds, maybe 2 laps ago. What are we seeing here? Is it Caron making sure his fuel gets to the end? Is it Lockwood going hell for leather and he's still going to need a pit stop? Or is Lockwood saved enough earlier on? There could still be something on here because Caron's pace is not what it was a couple laps ago.
No, certainly not. He's going to come across the line again and we'll get a read on his time. 1 minute 30-second lap time. So that is not the kind of times we'd expect from GS. They usually run 29s and 28s. So 1 minute 30.3 for Andrew Caron, and for Brian Lockwood, a 28.6. So that is like 2 seconds almost getting taken out of him on that lap alone. Question is, with less than 9 minutes in the race to go, does Lockwood have enough time to actually catch up?
I mean, if it's 1.7 seconds that lap with 7 laps to go, if he can keep that up every remaining lap, he'll be there. But then that 4-letter F word, fuel, who's got enough?
Yeah, and that is the question, you know. Up here in the commentary box, we don't have the readouts of how much fuel these guys have left. That's information that's only available to them. So it's as much of a mystery to us as it is to you, dear viewers. Andrew Caron having to lift off to let Lee Overton by, position 10 in GT. And Lockwood coming through the chicane on the backstretch as Andrew Caron enters the penultimate turn.
Yeah, let's see. Is this just a matter of pride? Lockwood trying to get the gap to the lead down underneath 10 seconds. Does he think he has a chance? Is there problems for Caron? Who quite knows? Still a barbecue on pit lane with Crane's car there. It looks like that's been quite the ongoing drama on pit road.
Yeah, and a big shame for Crane, you know. You're getting a live view of that gap for our GS class lead. You saw Lockwood just go by there, and oh, look at how much he is pushing. So you can see Brian Lockwood, he knows that he can chase down this lead, and he has taken everything out of this car that he possibly can to get that done. Hopefully, touch wood, he doesn't meet the same fate as his teammate. We know that Lockwood, very professional driver, races in real life as well. He knows how to wheel one of these things around. So if he can get up to the back of Andrew Caron and we see a battle for the GS class lead right at the end, that would certainly be a fantastic way to finish this one. Meanwhile, the gap between Garrett Thompson and Aaron Ackles under 1.5 seconds now. So the Quasar Sim Racing teammates running nice and strong here.
Yep, certainly are looking for 4th and 5th, and Ackles keeping it close, even though Thompson pitted earlier, had a longer pit stop, and still held on to the lead between these guys. Oh, this is going to be tough for Ackles with the Tortuga car in front. Which way is he going to stick the nose? He's losing just a little bit of time there that way.
Yeah, so a little bit of time lost, and coming up on Brian Lockwood actually there. Lockwood in a Quasar Sim Racing sandwich. But it doesn't look like he's being affected too much by these guys. We'll see what happens down at turn 1. If Ackles goes for the move, he does. You saw the flash in the mirror there. Fortunately, it's nice and wide. As actually hearing on the onboard, Lockwood's still saving a little bit of fuel. So despite that great turn of pace, he's still a little bit worried about making it to the end.
Might have been aiming to put the pressure onto Caron. Who knows? We'll see in a little bit, but you know, that great charge on one lap couldn't be sustained for every single remaining lap. It was only 0.2 the lap just gone. The lap before that, it was closer to a second. It needed to be much more in the region of 2 seconds a lap every single lap if this was going to work for Lockwood. But he's shown he's got good pace in his car. It's a shame about the qualifying, shame about that spin. Andrew Caron, touch wood here, for the minute, you know, is a deserving leader at the moment, just on consistency.
Yeah, he's had the most consistent drive out of, I'd say, our entire GS field at the moment. Once he's gotten into that lead, he's stayed there, and he's put down wonderful, consistent lap times. Barely put a foot wrong so far. Of course, winning the last race at Interlagos, getting his season off to an excellent start is Andrew Caron, and this may just build the confidence even further. He's got a good handle on that Porsche Cayman. Dominic Olivier as well, I think, will be happy with the result he's on for. A very dominant lead, leading by over 17 seconds now, and still flying the flag for Geodesic Racing. Boyson in second in our GT class still has not pitted, you know, but at this point, I think he's going for the no-stopper. But
Romano with a lot of damage on that car there as well. His car was clean last time we looked at him. He's parking that thing up. What's happened for Romano? Is this going to be a repeat of Tipton? It's the same corner.
All right, well, let's have a look. Over the curb. The car gets a bit bouncy. Oh,
No, he gets a bit of help from Jason Gotter.
Yeah.
Is that who it was?
Yes. Yeah, it's Jason Gotter there. So,
Or did he?
Well, we'll have to, I think we'll have to take a look at the onboard to see what has gone on here. So you obviously see the difference in cornering speed between the cars, and yeah, a little bit of contact there right on the exit. So that's a big shame there for our Lavender Sim Racing driver. Giovanni Romano, unfortunately having to go for the pits there, and that may just be a retirement for him. Brian Lockwood still chasing down Andrew Caron, gap under 9 seconds, but yeah, I think he's backed off by now.
Yeah, with every passing minute, it becomes an increasingly insurmountable task. I tell you what, if I'm Giovanni Romano, I'm not well pleased with that. He was just on his own line, doing the kind of speed you expect a GS class car to be doing. He didn't appear he slowed down on the racing line or anything, and he just gets rather unceremoniously sent into the barrier. If I'm him, I'm saying, what on earth are you doing? You knew where I would be and what speed I would be doing here, and made no attempt to avoid.
Well, race control is reviewing that incident, so we'll see if Jason Gotter faces the wrath of race control for that incident. And I would be inclined to agree. You know, that incident didn't really need to happen. It was just a case of the closing speed on the corner exit catching Gotter out. But yeah, you do need to be careful of that sort of thing at a track like this, in a series like this. Boyson on the massive fuel save. Yeah, look, if he pits now, I'm going to be very surprised because, you know, if he knew he wasn't going to make it, he probably would have pitted earlier. So if he manages to pull this off, this is going to be an excellent drive from Johan Boyson.
The pace isn't bad from Boyson right now, so if he does make it, wow, that'd be definitely very, very well done. A good job to manage the pace. So, yeah, I mean, you would not go this far, 2 laps to the end, and pit if you could avoid it. So we'll see what he does. Pit entry's just up here. He's got quite a fair whack of traffic in front of him. He's got lots of time behind him, so long as he doesn't need to pit.
Yeah, exactly right. And making his way through the traffic there, coming up on the back of Jack Anderek, who's currently sitting in 8th in our GT class. Meanwhile, these two teammates at Quasar Sim Racing, it's started to heat up between them right at the end. Gap
And
under a
Reece,
second now.
in GS class, Graham Sanders has pitted from 3rd. He doesn't think he can get to the end on fuel. That is very, very interesting to see.
Okay, so it was 4 seconds of fuel there for Graham Sanders. It wasn't enough. He had to take that stop. So,
one of the Quasar cars off as well. All happening in the final minute.
oh, yeah, it is too. And that was, looks like Garrett Thompson making a mistake there in the final sector. And it was quite a big one too. Almost got into the wall. Building optimization systems replay, just lost it. And then straight on, and you'll have a look at him just kissing the tyre barrier right there. So, very unfortunate for Thompson. He had, he was on for a great run, but yeah, unfortunately, those mistakes right at the end. These are long races. It's easy to start suffering from fatigue right at the end.
White flag for the GT leader. The time has just fallen that they're going to go maybe a lap longer than some others were hoping for. So Dominic Oliveira has just started the final lap when there was 2 seconds left on the board.
All right, so this is going to be final lap and what should be a very motivating victory for Dominic Olivier. And what about Andrew Caron? Well, he's got a huge lead of over 7 seconds over Brian Lockwood, and failing a fuel issue, I don't think there's any way that that gap can be closed. Caron just making his way past some traffic himself, so more potential for things to go wrong right at the end. But Caron, smooth, cool operator. He's continuing to just put that car in the exact right spots, pick up the throttle in the exact right spots. And there's Brian Lockwood. So very high gap. And oh, Garrett Thompson very slow for some reason.
Or just wants to go a lap down to our leader. Final corner for the leader.
Well, yeah, there we go. Dominic Olivier rounds the final turn, and what a fantastic drive from the Geodesic Racing driver. He flies the flag after Tyson Meyer was unfortunately retired from this race. Win for Dominic Olivier. Johan Boyson really slowing up here, but he looks like he's going to finish in 2nd place on a no-stopper, which we certainly weren't expecting in our GT class.
No, certainly not, but he must have been managing that right from the get-go, and he is going to get 2nd place. Very, very job well done there by Johan Boyson, not one we expected. What about the lead in GS class?
Well, the lead in GS class looks like it has been secured because Andrew Caron, 6.9 seconds back to Brian Lockwood, and he doesn't look like he's having to save too much. Oh, no, a little bit of a mistake from Caron right at the end. He caught the grass. He's in the wall. It's done for Andrew Caron. He's going to lose the lead here.
Lockwood on the grass
Lockwood.
too. They're going to be side by side here. Surely, with a car that damaged, Caron can't defend.
Oh.
Lockwood through into the lead.
Right at the end. It's gone off in our GS class. After such a brilliant measured drive from Andrew Caron, he makes a mistake right at the end and loses it to Lockwood. Are they good on fuel? They've only got one acceleration zone to go. Lockwood's good on fuel. He takes the win at the last gasp in GS, and Andrew Caron will be absolutely fuming.
Wow.
Wow, indeed.
We wanted a grandstand finish in this class. We didn't know that is how we were going to get it. Did you know Porsche make a rally version of this car? This isn't it, guys. Keep it on the pavement on the final lap. Neither of them could do it. Lockwood pushing so hard. Caron distracted, lost focus, thought about, pouring the champagne into that trophy too early.
Who knows? And that's a mistake we've seen from a few GS class cars in this race before. But the issue with Caron was when he corrected, he went over to the other side of the track and caught the grass there. So, wow, that must be incredibly disappointing. But Brian Lockwood, I reckon, is going to be very happy with this. We'll see what kind of mistake he made as we ride on board with him on the replay. And this sequence, this fast chicane, very easy to catch drivers out here. Yeah, big slide in the mid-corner. Fortunately, he found the tarmac runoff. And there's Caron with his incident. And Brian Lockwood's thinking, oh, geez, okay, cool. I've got this one now. Amazing.
That was wild. I could not believe my eyes as I saw it happening. Final lap, and there are a few things we just did not expect there. Boyson making it to the end on fuel, and then in GS class. My word.
My word indeed. Here are the unofficial results in the GT class. Dominic Olivier taking the win by 26 seconds over Johan Boyson, who, we should remind you, went for a no-stop strategy. Amazing that he managed to pull that off. Zach Plummer completes the podium for Action Sim Sports. Aaron Ackles comes home in 4th place. Maxime Detilly makes it top 5 in his McLaren. Garrett Thompson, unfortunately, will finish a lap down after his incident in the last few minutes. Jason Gotter and Jack Anderek round out the top 8, with Mark Noski and Lee Overton rounding out the top 10. Stacey Dunnigan, 3 laps down in 11th place. And then we get into retirement territory. Hayden Gober, Elijah Mitchell, Adam Crane, Dimitro Guzva, and Tyson Meyer, our pole sitter. Unfortunately, one of our first retirements, Andrew Taylor, also not making it to the end. Then we come to the GS class results.
Yeah, now winner there, Brian Lockwood, taking it on the final lap. Andrew Caron, a smooth, unflappable drive until that final lap when it all came unstuck, but he still limps it across for 2nd place. Graham Sanders then in 3rd, needed to take a splash and dash at the end, still stands on the podium though. Justin Rem there in 4th place. 5th goes to Sam Holden, who had dramas all of his own, but so did a lot of cars around this tricky, bumpy, sharply curbed circuit. David Browning then in 6th. Luke Watercheck in 7th. Giovanni Romano sent into the barriers, still gets 8th place. John Botafour then in 9th. Pole man Justin Tipton in 10th. Alan Powell 11th. John Miller there in 12th. Marcus Deck 13th. Luis Henriquez 14th. And Caleb John Lavender, I don't think took the start, 15th.
So there we are, all of the results and the way things stand after Barber. We're going to go on a very quick break here on the iRacing Esports Network, but once we come back, driver interviews and post-race. You're watching SimSpeed TV. This is the Geodesic GoPro Championship, round 2 from Barber Motorsports Park. We'll be back in a moment. Round 2 of the Geodesic GoPro Championship Sprint Multi-Class Racing in GTs. Man, it's absolutely turned it on for this second round of the championship. We're into post-race now, and we're going to our driver interviews. You know what? What a drive it was for Dominic Olivier. Starting from second place, it was a 1-2 Dominic for Geodesic Racing. Unfortunately, with Tyson's issue early on, you were left to fly the flag solo.
Yeah, it was a little bit bittersweet, you know. It's very unlucky that Tyson had his issues. Was looking forward to a nice battle there, teammate to teammate. But yeah, I'll take that. I'll take the win.
And it looked like it was a comfortable run for you going for the earlier pit stop. How much thought were you putting into when you were going to pit, and what kind of effect does racing at a track like this have on the fuel strategy in a GT3 car?
You know what? To be completely honest with you, it's my first ever race around Barber, and yeah, first multi-class as well around here too. So I really didn't know what to expect. Just kind of jumped into some practice today and in the car, and I had no idea that many strategy opportunities or options were available. So it's quite interesting to see that Johan made himself get up to P2 without stopping in the McLaren. I don't think the Mercedes could have done that, but that's impressive. I know that Adam Crane, he had really good pace, and he pitted very early. I think maybe lap 7 or something like that. And so I had to really monitor the gap and make sure I manage it. And so I just kept pushing and tried to manage it. But it was fun. It was good fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, this being your first race at Barber, then, well, what do you think of the track? Certainly, quite twisty, quite elevation changey, almost a miniature Nürburgring.
Oh man, this track really does suit my driving style. I love it. I love the flow of it, the heavy braking zones, the way you have to throw the car, into certain corners, the off-cambered nature of some corners. It's a roller coaster ride. I love it.
Well, coming into the next round of the season, start of this one has gotten off to an all right start for you. Before we let you go, Dominic, anyone you'd like to thank? Shout outs and sponsors. Who gets it done for you?
Yeah, my team Geodesic Racing. I'd like to thank them and all the sponsors. Thank everybody for showing up and tuning into the Geodesic GoPro League. This is really a great platform for us, and happy to have everyone here competing and spectating. And thank you guys for commentating on it. You guys are awesome.
Cheers, Dominic, and thanks for joining us in the commentary box. David, you are stood by with our GS class winner, Brian Lockwood.
Brian, welcome. A 75-minute race. And for how many of those minutes did you think you were going to be standing on the top step of the podium?
About 20 seconds.
Tell us about, we'll double back to that final lap. Don't worry, but about this car, about this circuit. Obviously pretty new to iRacing is the Cayman Club Sport. Not a lot of downforce. This is a circuit with some really steep curves, some blind corners, a lot of undulation change, and all that. What's the car like around the track?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. The car behaves like a Porsche Cup, a Porsche GT3 Cup with less power. So it's really fun to just wheel around. You can push it pretty hard without it being as punishing as the bigger car. So Barber is a great track to experience this car as well because it's tight, it's technical, and there's enough going on that the car. I mean, I think it was a lot of fun here. Unfortunately, the car really does struggle over bumps. So I got caught out by that several times during this race. I think a couple other people did too. But overall, yeah, fantastic combo.
Strategy was a bit of a question for this class coming into this round. Only one driver ended up taking a pit stop for fuel. Is that something you were managing from the get-go?
Not exactly. I knew that a one stop was possible, so I saved when I had the opportunity to save. But I found myself in third place for most of the race in complete no man's land. I was pushing to try and catch the leaders, but after my first spin, uh, I really had no chance. I was very unlikely to move anywhere, or so I thought. So I just decided to push and try to have fun, run some fast laps, and if I had to pit at the end, I'd have to pit at the end. I realized with about 10 laps to go that I actually had a chance at making it. So then I started to dial it back a bit and fuel save, make sure I made it to the end.
So tell me about this last lap here. You're bouncing off the curbs and the back section of the track. Big slide. You got to go all the way out towards the runoff to try and catch it. Then you look forward and you see the leader with damage. What are you thinking?
Oh, you described my thought process perfectly. That's exactly what I saw, and I feel so crushed for Andrew. He drove an awesome race, and that is, I know from experience that is just the worst way to lose a P1. Not how I wanted to win, but these things happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew's on the other end of something like that sometime this season. So I think he showed up really strong today, and I think the championship battle is going to be one to watch out for.
2 rounds done, couple more to go. Some of your attention going forward maybe going to be stolen by the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. We're still going to see you for all of the races that you can attend?
Absolutely. I'm not sure. Well, thankfully, it's really easy to switch between the Porsche Cup and the GT4 because, as I said, they drive really similarly. There's just a couple different quirks to each car, but it's pretty easy to jump into this car, and they have a similar driving style. So definitely going to try to make every race. Of course, I'm going to do my best not to let it get in the way of preparation for the Super Cup, but I want to win a world championship for my Americans. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I love racing this series, and I hope to be back every race.
And we definitely look forward to having you again. Congratulations on that win here in round 2. Reese, I'll throw it back over to you.
Yes, indeed. The next driver we're going to talk to is our second place finisher in the GT class, Johan Boysen. Welcome to the commentary box, Johan. What a result for you. I don't think any of us were expecting you to go a no stop. Certainly the other drivers in the field didn't. Did you expect it?
Yes, no, I had to plan for it a little bit.
So what was your intent coming into the race? Were you initially intending to stop and switching strategy halfway through, or were you going for the fuel saver knowing that the McLaren has the biggest fuel tank?
Well, it was pretty much when we found out the race length and we weren't going to get a fuel restriction, I started looking at, could I make it? And it seemed easier than I thought it was going to be. And then I started planning for it, hoping nobody else would do it. And I needed a bit of luck, and unfortunately, it was more, someone else's bad luck today. But I needed a little bit of luck. I was actually hoping for a safety car early in the race, so that I could save a bit more, and someone else, they still needed to pit. But it was a little bit of practice, a little bit of figuring out exactly, where to lift and clutch and all that.
Well, at the end of it, you managed to get a podium, which is more than could be said for your race at Interlagos, where you ran into some issues. Do you think your season is now back on track with this result?
Yeah, I hope so. I got myself into a little bit of a bad position at the previous race, and got unlucky with traffic, which ended my race in Interlagos. So I came into this especially. I was going to take it very easy with the traffic, not take any chances. And I think that's why the fuel saving strategy helped, because it sort of calms me down. So I could take it easy. If there's traffic, you just lift a little more. But yeah, no, very happy with today. It's a nice change from the first round.
Certainly is. Virginia International Raceway is the next round of the championship. How do you think the McLaren's going to tackle that circuit? Because we know from previous experience that the McLaren is one of the hardest cars to drive in the GT class.
Well, we'll do some practice and find out. I think it should be okay. I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoy driving the car, so we'll make it work.
All right, and before we let you go, Johan, shout-outs, sponsors, who gets it done for you?
Just like to thank all the guys at Team Tortuga for the support, and good job to David Browning as well on P6, and my wife for sticking around with my my hobby.
It's a very productive hobby, as your podium proves. Johan Boysen there, your second place finisher. Thank you for joining us. And unfortunately, David, it looks like Andrew Caron is not going to be joining us, and understandably so. He'll be quite miffed after that last lap incident. You stood by with third place in GS, Graham Sanders.
How's it going?
Yeah, that I am. Welcome to the commentary box, Graham. One of the few drivers to have to make a pit stop for fuel. Did the race end up going a little longer than you expected there?
Yeah, definitely. When I started the race, I was only going to have to save about half a gallon, and I'd say probably 3/4 through the race, noticed the race was going to be 51 laps instead of 50, and with like 10 to go, I was going to have to save almost a full gallon. So figured with the gap that I had behind me I think it might have been Justin Rem, figured just to jump in for a splash just to be safe. So it worked out.
Attrition was an understatement for your class today. You've steered clear of the minefields, stood on the podium. Any close calls for you?
I had a couple scary moments coming out of the little, I don't know if you would call it a chicane on the back side of the track there. That's definitely my weakest spot with those curbs. And then I had, I think, one moment, and I think it was Elijah Mitchell. He had a moment going down through I think it's called the corkscrew on this track as well, but he went sideways and almost hit him, almost T-boned him, but stayed out of trouble, which I think played a big part in getting podium.
When registration opened for this championship, it was before anyone had actually had a chance to drive the Porsche GT4. You happy with the decision? Are you liking it? Are you enjoying racing it?
Yeah, definitely. That was something that my teammates and I talked about. A couple of them didn't really want to take the GT4 for that very reason, not really having any time. I think we had about a week to drive the car before qualifying for the league. But yeah, I'm definitely proud or happy that I took the Cayman. It's really fun.
You've done a good job keeping the car clean, standing on the podium. I congratulate you for that. Any shout out sponsors, anything you want to say while you are still live on the iRacing Esports Network and other platforms?
I just want to thank my teammates, Jack Anderek, Luke Watashik, and Sam Holden. They've really been I think we've all been a very big confidence booster for each other. So it's nice to have them.
Well, thank you so much for that.
Thank you, guys.
That's Graham Sanders, their third place in GS. And for our final driver interview of the night, we have got Action Sim Sports' Zach Plummer in the commentary box with us. G'day, Zach. A podium for you. Good result.
Yeah, it is. Not really what I expected, to be honest. I knew this race was going to be a race of attrition, so it was just more of keeping my nose clean and hoping for the best at the end.
What kind of strategy were you guys thinking about at Action Sim Sport? How does the Audi approach Barber Motorsports Park?
With the patch that just came out today, the fuel nerf that iRacing decided to give the Audi kind of threw a curveball in there and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew saving fuel wasn't going to be an option, so it was just more trying to tick off some laps and stay clean and just see what happens at the end. I was hoping for Johan to dive into the pits, but he had, I guess, an extra lap of fuel, which is pretty insane. So phenomenal fuel saving on his part there.
In terms of your team performance, a podium for you, but your teammate Hayden Gober unfortunately did not have the best of luck. So Action Sim Sport in the team standing, still a bit of work to do coming into VIR, but you guys definitely have the pace.
Yeah, we're working together pretty well so far in these first two events. Hayden had a mistake. He said he went into the grass, and then that sent him into the wall. But he managed to get 0 incidents at Interlagos, which was pretty good for him. And then I managed to get 0 here. So if we can just manage to do that in the same race, then we'll be sitting pretty.
Going for that clean driver award. Well, Zach, thank you for joining us in the commentary box. Anyone that you would like to thank for Action Sim Sports before we let you go?
Yeah, just pretty much everybody over at Action Sim Sport. Hayden for being a good teammate and helping with setups every week. Simon from Hayes Racing, who does our liveries. Geodesic and GoPro for putting on the event. and you guys at SimSpeed TV for
Thank you very much, Zach Plummer. That's your third place finisher in our GT class. Well, David, that brings to an end proceedings for tonight once again. And what a round here in round 2. Certainly wasn't expecting that result in GS.
No. I mean, what more do you want? You know, we had some great racing. We had some solid battles. We had every type of GT3 manufacturer you could probably want. And, you know, some making that McLaren work to stand on the podium like we saw. You know, there was always a question around strategy bubbling around underneath the whole race. And then at the end, I don't know if these guys meant to put on a show, but boy, did they.
They certainly did, and we're sure to see a show being put on at every subsequent round of this Geodesic GoPro Championship. The next round is in 2 weeks' time at Virginia International Raceway, and it will be this day, this time, on the iRacing Esports Network and on iRacing Live as well. We thank you very much for joining us. We want to thank GoPro for their sponsorship of this series and their support. We want to thank Building Optimization Systems for their support as well on our replays. I'm Reese Gardiner. David Haynes was in the commentary box with me, and Jay Kennedy operating cameras and handling the streaming side of things here at SimSpeed TV. From all of us here on the iRacing Esports Network, it's bye for now, but not forever.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside. Both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him. Oh my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Section's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?